I'm the same way.
All right, welcome to another episode of Investing with Quito. I got my co-host Jeremy today. Hi,
Hey,
Jeremy.
hey, how's it going?
Good. Well, today we have a special guest. I met Pat earlier this week, and we have something in common. We're actually both, came from Laos, which is kind of cool to see another, Laotian that's just, killing it out there in the real estate world. So I want to, to take this time and introduce Pat and have him share his amazing story, how he came from his struggles to how he overcame it and where he is now. So, Pat, welcome to our show.
Hey, thank you for having me, guys. Thank you.
Yes,
Somebody.
somebody. Yes, yes, yes. So
Yeah.
thank you. So yeah, it was a pleasure getting to know you earlier this week, and I was really inspired and wanted to share with our audience, have you share your story because I know it's gonna inspire other people as well. So take it
Mhm.
away, Pat.
Thanks for having me. I don't think it's that great of a story, but yeah. But I'm a war immigrant. Our family came here during the Viet in the '80s during the Vietnam War. So we are, so I'm in Atlanta, so I'm in Atlanta, Georgia. And when my family came down, our sponsor was from Atlanta. So our sponsors actually are part of our church, and our sponsor was a radio host, a pretty big radio host here in Atlanta, and we landed in California like most immigrants from Vietnam War back then, and then we came straight to Atlanta and we stayed in Atlanta. So our community in terms of the Laotian community, we're kind of spread out, but my dad was military. My dad was a chopper pilot for the King Warrior Air Force. We
Mm.
fought against the communists. He was CIA trained, and he was a chopper pilot. So that's kind of the reason why we were able to immigrate over here. And when we landed over here, my dad spoke English because he was military. So he actually, in the homeland in Laos, he was trained by the Russians, right? So because we were a Russian colony, Russian trained, so trained by a Russian. So he spoke Russian, he spoke French because we were a French colony, and he spoke English. And so, he can
Wow.
write and read it, maybe not perfectly, but that's what he was able to do. So when we came over here, we got sponsored by the Southern Baptist Church. In Atlanta. We stayed here. We got off the airplane. We went across the street to an apartment complex, and we stayed there. So that complex was like, it was in College Park, Georgia, and it was the African American community and the small Laotian community that was there. And we stayed there for a long time. So and when you immigrate over, no matter what, and I'll tell you, like my dad and family history, it's like, I don't care if you're a doctor, I don't care if a colonel, I don't care if you anything, a scientist. We start from ground zero. So my dad came in, learning a little bit of language, and he worked a factory job pretty much for the rest of his life until he retired. So we were always poor. We were always on food stamps. But man, I had no idea we were poor. I had no idea. So we also had a big family. So I'm one out of I have four brothers and two sisters. So we
Wow.
were huge, huge, huge family. So we were always rich in the community in terms of food. I was always there. My parents worked odd jobs, mostly factory jobs, being there. But we worked our way out of food stamps, and that's at least my parents did, work their way out of food stamps. So I was always seeing them, pretty much being raised by my siblings, pretty much. Parents always worked; they never went. So, in fact, so to fast forward that, so I grew up here in Atlanta, and as I was kind of growing up, I really didn't know what I wanted to do. I was always a little bit slower than most people. I was always slower to read. I was always slower to finish tests. I know I was smart. I just couldn't figure out as I was going to school. So when I got out of school, I went to a local college here. I went there for a few semesters, and I realized that that wasn't for me. So I actually went and I got a job. I got a retail job, just working retail, and worked my way up to management only for a few years, right? Like all my friends are going to college. I was, learning how to manage a store. And that actually took me, and I was a guy where I was like, I basically copied all their systems, right? I copied their manuals, I copied their training system, I copied everything. I just basically copied everything. And I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And I thought to myself that, I don't have a college education. well, what am I going to do? Am I going to go to, the American dream is always like, from what we're taught, right, from the system. It's like you get out of school, you get a good job, you go to a university, a college, and then you get out and you get a job and you work your way up the ladder. Well, for me, that was hard because I wasn't educated. I was trying to figure it out. So, but when I learned, management skills and how to hire people, because that's what I was doing. I was hiring people, I was managing, I was doing the system. I actually learned a lot, within those 2 years, those 2 to 3 years. That was my university of learning. And then I always knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I always had that in the back of my mind. So that was my goal. And then I'm going to go step back just a little bit. As I was as a teenager, I would clean windows. I would do different things to try to figure out how to make money, And my mom would always go and she would go knock on a farmer's door to cut their plants. And then she would pay them a small amount, like let's say $6, $12, and she would cut this plant and she would sell the plants to the community, and she would make $100, $200, and she would do that for a few days out of the week, and she would make decent money to feed the family. So I always saw her because as a kid I would always ride with her to all these different places. She would just knock on doors, mostly like a farmer's house just to go, because they were in our country. The majority of our people are farmers, right? They farm their own land, they got their own food. So I always saw that, but my parents always worked factories. So when I was working the management, I was looking at different I was looking at different business that was for sale. So at the time, my girlfriend, now my wife, but at the time, we she came back. We were dating, and and she was going through the same struggles too. She's like, "What am I going to do? With our career, what I'm going to do? Am I going to get this? Am I going to go back to school, get a master's? Am I going to go and I work for this insurance company, this job?" And I told her, I said, why don't you create your own job? Why don't you create your own job? Why don't we create your own business? And I gave her my ideas. And at that same time, I was also, this is what I didn't bring, but I also bought my first property too. So I saved up money while I was living home, and I bought my first property. I think I put like $10,000 down. So I bought this big old house for $200,000 for $10,000 down. And I was just smitten. I was like, oh my gosh, I bought a house with $10,000 down for $200,000. And this was a huge house. It was in a golf course community. It was like 5 bedrooms, 4 baths. It was a mansion of a house. And I house hacked, right, without knowing it. So, and I got my brother, 2 friends, and they paid for the mortgage. And I'm like, okay, this is amazing. So that's how I got started into the real estate. But the reason why I did got it, when I think I was 16, I think I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, and that's what kind of took it away from me. So I did that while I was working, my management retail job there. But I also wanted to do real estate, and I also wanted to be a business owner. So before I started owning a business, before I go there, I think I went too fast. So me and my brother, we started have this plan. We're like, hey, let's buy a house. Because they were back then, I think it was 07, where they were just giving away loans left and right. So I bought that house, and I was like, hey, you guys, because it was at what do you call it? We were all still semi young, but first time home buyers, right? They'll get a loan to anybody, first time home buyers. So I got this plan where I was like, I got three guys. My brother was like, everybody, let's buy a house. So we started putting money together, and we're like, we bought a house. And then we flipped one house. We were there working ourselves, But so that's what we started doing. And I think where I had a challenge on that point was like, when you have too many cooks in the kitchen or too many chefs in the kitchen, like they didn't want to sell for 20K. They wanted to sell for 40K. They didn't want to sell for 20K. Like they didn't want to sell and make the small pie. They wanted it too big. So we held on to it for way too long. So back in 08, we crashed when the thing crashed. So we lost all of our properties besides the one that I bought, for the one that I kept, my first house that I bought for myself. We lost all of the properties. And I had to go to foreclose, and my credit went bad. So I didn't touch properties for another it's 7 years, but probably I want to say like probably 9 to 10 years. I didn't go back to it. I always wanted to do it, but I didn't. So what I did was I took the remaining of cash that I had left, and I went and I bought a business. So going back to my girlfriend at the time, she came back from a salon, and she's like, hey, there's this lady that, where I go, she's selling her salon. What do you think about it? I said, well, let's look at the P&L and let's see. And we looked at the P&L and I was like, oh my gosh, the cash flow that was bringing into the salon was amazing. I was like, I've never seen this,
Mm.
like this is amazing. I'm like, no, I think we should buy this. So we went in, we bought the business together. And, and she started working, my girlfriend at the time, she started working there. I stayed with my job because it's, we had insurance and we stayed with that. So I stayed for, I think probably for another 6 months. And she's like, hey, you got to come help me out full time. So we went in and we opened that business and we went from one salon. At our highest point, we had 10 locations.
Wow.
Wow.
So we scaled from there. And, like in any business, when you scale that fast too, even though it's 10 locations, a quarter of the locations are paying for the rest of the 10, right? And we're like, okay, we got to figure out how to scale this, and it's lesson learned. Like it's just one of those things you learn through the hardship. But and then from there, we tried so many different business too, right? We had a nutrition store, we had a restaurant, a cleaning business. I even, with another partner, a good friend of mine, we started a construction business, and that partner went sour. That didn't work out. He left the country. So I've tried. So for the past 20 years, we've always had the salon business, but I've tried also different business too. But with that being
And
said,
Pat, can I ask a question on that?
yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Did you do acquisition of those businesses or did you start them fresh
We
each time?
so we actually did acquisition. So we actually bought it from a hired business owner. So we
Great.
started some fresh, but half and half. So
Great.
because that's how we started, right? So it's like the lady was tired, she was selling it, and we took her existing like business and we just kind of scaled it. And then also going back to my story of working as a manager at a big retail store, I took all their systems and all their policies and I basically copy and paste it into our business. So we had everything just kind of like a big corporation, but ran like mops and pops. So we had a lot of systems in place, training manual, like all these different training stuff. It's just policies. We had a whole book of systems that I learned from working as a manager in a retail store. So yeah.
That's great.
Right. I was kind of curious because you went from, having one to at one time having 10. I mean, what was that like, and what was your end game with those with
Once upon a
salons?
time, I thought that we were going to franchise it and we're going to scale it, like nationwide. So yeah, that was the end game. That was the goal at the time. That was the goal. In the back of my mind, we always loved real estate, but that was just one of those things where I was like, oh, I gotta wait for and I didn't know this, right? I didn't know what we do now. We created financing and all these options. So when I foreclosed the properties that I had there, I wish I would have had the options of creative financing and subject to, because I would have that house the second house that I lost. I think I bought it for close to around like 280,000. That house now is over $1 million here in Atlanta.
Wow.
Like imagine if I had an exit strategy on that house or I had partners. I wish I would have known what I know back then. Now I'm helping people get out of foreclosures and save their properties. And I wish I had that exit strategy. I mean, that's just kind of one of my biggest regrets. Like, I wish I would have known those things.
Right. Yeah. Hindsight's always 2020 because, like you and I went through the kind of like, I wish I knew then what I do now, but now that I know, right, like, that's why that's why you're successful. You're taking all those lessons and you're applying it and you're moving forward. So
yeah, a lot of failures, I would say.
yes.
Yes.
So do you still have that cleaning business as well, or is that one sold, gone?
No, that was something that's gone. So we actually I just closed my restaurant and we still have our salon. We have one location and we have two that we franchise. So that's kind of on the tail end of it, but that's what we have left for right now. I do want to add, so as we have our small business, as we're running it for the past 10 years, we've always bought one real estate. We always bought one house a year. So we bought one house a year. We would rehab the house and we would put it on Airbnb. Then we rehab another house. We do long-term rentals. We rehab another house. So for 10 years, we bought one property a year, and we acquired. We did the BRRRR strategy, and we acquired 10 properties within 10 years. And as we got older, we're like, this is a very slow growth. It's not what they say. You can have 10 properties. We're not rich, we're house poor. Like there's got to be a way to scale because we're getting older now. We're like, okay, the business, has gone up and down, the cycles of small business. Like, what can we do? Like, what are we going to do? How do we scale? And that's when we started searching and wanted to figure out how do we, a $300 cash flow is not going to make us rich. It's not going to pay all the bills. It's nice, and it gave us a platform, to move forward, and it gave us a lot of opportunity. But it's not, it's not scalable. We can get there. It might take us another 20 years to get there. So that's when we started looking, and I started looking into wholesaling, and that's when I saw wholesaling. Obviously Bigger Pockets. Listen to tons of Bigger Pockets podcasts, and that was more on the traditional side, and that's when we started searching. I'm a little old-fashioned, and what I mean by that is that I always want to learn everything and do everything myself the hard way, and I realized that it took way too long, and that I needed help. And I just didn't know. I didn't know how. I didn't know about communities. I didn't know about, I'll go back to culture, like the Asian culture. We especially the immigrant culture, we learn to save, and we want to do everything ourselves. Like getting help and reaching out for help is foreign to us. Like it's not what we do. It's just not part of our culture. If you were sad, like you didn't go to a therapist. Like that's not what you do. You keep it to yourself, right? So learning that and getting out of that, I think I learned that through the entrepreneur spirit and the entrepreneur way, because we just, it's just one of those things where you have to, right? You can't do everything by yourself. So I was cheap. I didn't want to pay for a mentor, even though I paid 100 here, 100 there. Hell, I even paid 1,000 here, 1,000 there. But I was wasting my money because I was going to the wrong communities. But I had a hard time, and I try to learn everything, and I'm a slow learner. And now, with our communities and with communities, I realize that it's who, not how, right? If I learn how to do it, it may take me 2 to 3 years. But if I have who, and I can learn with the who's already doing well, that's kind of my thing. Like my thing now is like, let me go to the who's already done it, and let me help them and bring value to them, and let me learn from them too. Because I always try to do it by myself, and it always takes me. It's like, I don't know, something as simple as like I need to learn social media, right? And I'm trying to learn iPhone and social media. It's taking me a whole day instead of going to a guy that can do it in 2 minutes, And I think that's one of my valuable lessons that I'm learning now in my later years than I wish I would have known in my younger years, is that go to the who, like if I would have done it over, I would have gone to somebody who's already doing it way better than me, and I would have learned from them instead of just learning from scratch, crashing, and it taking another 10 years for me to get back into the game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's big nowadays. Is like paying for the education, paying for the information is way more profitable than learning it yourself. And obviously, you have to be a good learner. You have to be a good student. You have to learn things. You have to do the work, obviously. But like paying for the information to get ahead is like, it puts like, that's a different mindset for most people, right? Like,
Yeah, it sure is. I mean, I love the fact that, can remind, like it's, there's just a book out. I think it's called Who Not How. I forget who the author is, but you're absolutely right. Going to somebody that's already doing the things that you want, because you really cut that learning curve. Like you, I mean, it takes me a while to learn things, but if I go and, shadow someone that's doing it, I mean, you just really cut the curve, and they can show you shortcuts and pitfalls that they've gone through that you've, as experience can be very pricey. So.
Yeah. Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
that's by Dan Sullivan, Quito. Who Not How is by Dan Sullivan.
Oh, Dan Sullivan. So, okay.
Yeah, looks good.
Yeah.
I think he wrote another book. I didn't know it was who, but yeah, no, it's just one of those things where it's just like, wow. I just, and now I'm still learning. It's just, there's tons of stuff. I'm still new to this, I'm still new to creative financing. Oh, just going back to the story. So it took us 10 years to acquire 10 properties. And then, and then now it took us, just like last year alone, we bought 5 properties. So it's like, it then accelerated a lot faster, faster. Through creative financing, still, we just accelerated a lot faster. And yeah, that's thanks to just the community, having community, going out there and learning from other people in the community, other communities. I mean, it's just one of those things where it's just the networking is huge. I mean, you guys are in Montana, I'm in Atlanta. So, just kind of give you, a perspective, or whoever's listening, like we're we've met, we've connect, and I'm sure we'll do deals together in the future.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's the thing, like when you get into a community, and that's, one thing, like, in 2008, like you and I at a craftsman, I didn't have resources like we have now. I mean, imagine if we had, I mean, even right now when the market's shifting, it's so important to be in a community like this, because this is how we could help each other push through the shift, right? Because
Yes.
someone's learning
Mhm.
this, someone's learning this strategy. Like, okay, well, this is working. Let's do that. Versus before in '08 when things at the fan are like, no, like, you didn't have people that you can reach out to and talk to, because everyone was kind of in the same boat. So,
Exactly. Well, earlier, when I wanted to just do it full time, I was still working. I was trying to do like as a side gig, not the part that me and my partner was doing where we were buying, one a year. But so I go into those rooms, with the cassette tapes and the videos, that you go and they're like, oh, it's
mhm.
for free, and I walk out of there paying either $300 or paying $800, for some guru. They give you this tape, and that's where it ended. It didn't go anywhere. And they're like, oh, if you come back, sorry guys, somebody's calling me. Sorry. And they said, if you come back, it would be another $10,000 or $5,000. I was like, oh my gosh, I've done that probably like 3 times. And those rooms, it's like they're stuffy rooms. They say they're gurus. They're not teaching you anything. They give you just a little bit just to sell to you. And I've been in quite a few of those.
Mhm.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. So, so now you've gone through, the hardship, and you're coming out of it. Where are you at now, and what are you looking to do?
So we have pivot into real estate full time. All right. So during COVID, we realized that when everything was shut down, that the small business was great, and it was nice, but like we realized that we're not able to. I'm not going to say we tired, but it's like if you're not working at it, you're not keeping it going. I mean, when you think about your older years and your older age, like what am I going to do? So we pivot and we made a decision that we're going to do real estate full time as a business. The same way we've been running our business, and we have some success in several business. But we made the commitment to say we're going to do real estate as a business. We're not going to do this as a side gig. We're going to do this as a business. So
Mhm.
we have not walked away. We still have our small business, and it's running, but we've gotten into real estate full time. So we were doing first, fix and flips, and obviously some still buy and holds because we have a portfolio. But learning and what we know now, we realized that like the way real estate changed, we also have to pivot, right? So I started a small wholesale team. So we are all doing some wholesaling and doing things creatively. We are buying things creatively and turn around and putting it back on the market or doing co-living. So we do a little bit of everything. So my partner, she was a loan officer when we started to pivot, and then she started doing private money lending. Again, pivoting again. So, but I think my main thought process and goal when we decided to pivot is that for me, I was thinking to myself, what can I do in my old age or until I die that I'm going to enjoy, that I'm going to do as a hobby? And I've always enjoyed real estate in terms of, fix and flips. I'm like, I can do that. That's not a job. Fix and flips it's a hobby, that I love doing. I can go there, I can talk about it, I can do it all day long. And if you do it right, it's one of those things where even if you retire, you get bored and you say, hey, let me do 2 flips this year, let me do 3 flips this year, and you can always do that. So that was my goal into retirement, was to keep doing real estate. And obviously now, it's changed. Now it's like, oh, we can do wholesaling. It's like when we get into do real estate, it's fun. It's like, okay, well, what can I do? Who can I help? And even now, as we're acquiring properties, creatively, we're stopping people from foreclosure, right? And we're helping them get out of that situation. At the same time, we're helping other people who can't get into a property get into a property. So
Mhm.
yeah, to me, this is fun. It's more of a hobby than it is a job. And I'm doing it. I'm working, long hours, but I don't feel it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
That's exciting.
yeah, I can definitely, see the passion in you, I mean, like you, I mean, I love real estate, and we can talk real estate all day long. And that's when that, what, this is it. Like you said, you could do real estate tell the day the Lord calls you back home.
Yes.
As long as you have a sound mind, there's always something you can do, whether you're helping people, stopping them foreclosure, helping somebody else get into real estate. I mean, there's so many different facets.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
And then going back to your original question. So, and then we started, just to help out the beginners or the Atlanta communities. So, so we you were in our Zoom this morning. So thank you so much for that. But those are the things that, like, those are just people that are learning, and for us, that's like, that's our local community, and people come and ask us questions, and people ask for help, and that need help. And also, in return, is what you put out, what you get back in, and we get more deals, we get more deal flows. So it's a win-win, for everybody.
mhm. Yeah, well, thank you so much, Pat, for sharing your story. And if people wanted to get a hold of you or follow you, because I know you're working on social media, what's the best place for people to reach out to you?
Yeah, so I'll give out my number. So, and I'm only with mostly text. Is how people get in touch with me, because I don't know, I'm not going to answer. But my number is 404-933-0324. Again, that's 404-933-0324. And you can follow me on Instagram and Facebook. It is just my last name that is on there, I believe. So that is Voraotsady. That's Voraotsady. So in Laos, that's Voraotsady.
All right. Yeah, and
Yeah.
we'll make sure we'll put that in the show notes too. So
Yes.
that's on there. Thank you so much, today for sharing your story, your inspiring story from where you came to where you are now, and how you continue to move forward in real estate and in helping other people. Right. So and basically you're giving back to the community when you do that. So that is awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, guys. Thank you, Jeremy.
Yeah, thanks, Pat.
All right, thanks.
Yeah. All right, guys. Thank you.